Under the blinding glare of patrol lights, he watched me kneel, convinced he held all the power. He was wrong. What he really saw was the beginning of his own downfall. The flashing red and blue lights were like a punch to the gut, a sudden violent intrusion into the quiet hum of my engine and the soft jazz on the radio. For a moment I just sat there, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. It had been a long, grueling week. 18-hour days spent hunched over forensic reports, chasing down a lead in a human trafficking case that was turning my stomach inside out. All I wanted was my bed, a cup of tea, and the sweet relief of silence. Instead, I got this. I pulled my sleek, unassuming sedan over to the shoulder of the deserted country road, the tires crunching on the gravel. I killed the engine and the jazz died with it, leaving only the sound of my own breathing and the approaching crunch of heavy boots. In the rearview mirror, I saw him, tall, broad-shouldered, with a silhouette that screamed authority and a walk that oozed arrogance. I ran through the checklist in my head, the one every black person in America has memorized. Hands on the wheel at 10 and 2, interior light on, window down before he even asks. Don't make any sudden movements. Be polite but not familiar. Use sir and officer. Survive. He tapped on the glass with a thick knuckle, even though the window was already halfway down. I lowered it the rest of the way, the chilly night air raising goosebumps on my arms. "Evening, officer," I said, my voice steady, professional. It's the voice I use in depositions, the one that gives nothing away. He shone a blindingly bright flashlight directly into my eyes, forcing me to squint. "License and registration." His voice was a low growl, laced with impatience. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking through me, his eyes cataloging my braids, my dark skin, my presence in this predominantly white, affluent suburb after 10 p.m. "Of course, sir." I moved slowly, deliberately, narrating my every move. "I'm just reaching into my glove compartment for my registration." He grunted, his flashlight beam never leaving my face. I handed over the documents along with my driver's license. He snatched them from my hand, his gaze dropping to the license, then flicking back up to my face, a slow, ugly smirk spreading across his lips. "Dr. Alana Washington," he read aloud, drawing out each syllable with mocking emphasis. "Doctor of what?" "Voodoo." I refused to take the bait. I kept my expression neutral, my hands returning to the 10 and 2 position on the wheel. "Criminology, sir. My doctorate is in criminology." This seemed to amuse him even more. "A criminologist, huh? Figures. You probably know all the tricks." He leaned in closer, his stale coffee breath washing over me. His eyes roamed the interior of my car, finally settling on the duffel bag on my passenger seat. It contained a change of clothes and my workout gear, but I knew what he saw. "What's in the bag?" he demanded, his tone shifting from mockery to accusation. "My gym clothes, officer." "Sure they are," he sneered. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am." My blood ran cold. This was the script deviating into dangerous territory. "Officer, with all due respect, what is the reason for this stop? Was I speeding?" "Your taillight's out," he snapped. "Now get out of the car before I pull you out. Hands where I can see them." My heart was a cold, hard knot in my chest, but my training kicked in. De-escalate. Comply. Survive. I opened the door and stepped out onto the gravel shoulder, the stones digging into the thin soles of my heels. The second officer, who'd been silently observing from his own vehicle, now approached, his hand resting casually on his holstered weapon. The first officer, whose name tag I could now read, Miller, gestured for me to turn around. "Face the car. Hands on the hood. Spread 'em." I did as I was told, the cold metal of the hood seeping through my thin blazer. I could feel his eyes boring into my back as he performed a rough pat-down. It was needlessly invasive. his hands lingering just a little too long. It was about humiliation. It was about power. "Found nothing, Miller," the other cop said, sounding almost bored. Miller wasn't deterred. He was on a mission. "She fits the description of a suspect in a string of burglaries in the area," he lied, his voice loud enough for the dashcam I knew was recording. "Young, black female, driving a dark sedan." It was a lie so blatant, so textbook, it was almost insulting. But I knew arguing would only make it worse. He was building his narrative, creating his justification. "I have nothing on me, officer. I just want to go home," I said, my voice tight. That was the wrong thing to say. It made him feel like he was winning. "You'll go home when I say you can go home," he snarled, yanking my arm and spinning me around to face him. His face was inches from mine, twisted in a mask of pure, unadulterated contempt. "I know your type. Think your fancy degree and your nice car make you better than everyone. But I see you for what you are." My composure finally cracked. "And what is that, Officer Miller?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. His eyes glinted with triumph. He had gotten the reaction he wanted. "On your knees," he commanded, poking me in the chest with a thick finger. I stared at him, disbelief warring with cold, hard reality. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. Get on your knees. Hands on your head." "Now!" he roared, his hand dropping to his weapon. The world seemed to slow down. The crickets in the nearby woods, the distant hum of the highway, the pounding in my own ears. It all faded into a dull buzz. This was it, the moment where it all goes wrong. With his partner as a witness, he was forcing me to kneel on a dark roadside, humiliated, powerless. Another hashtag in the making. My survival instinct, honed over years of living in my own skin, screamed at me to comply. So I did. I slowly, painfully, lowered myself onto the sharp gravel, the stones biting into my knees through my slacks. I interlaced my fingers and placed my hands on the back of my head, just like I'd seen in 1,000 videos. Miller stood over me, a triumphant silhouette against the flashing lights. "See? Not so tough now, are you?" he gloated. "Just another mouthy thug who knows her place when things get real." A strange calm washed over me. The fear was still there, a cold stone in my stomach, but it was joined by something else, a slow, burning, icy rage. He thought he was putting me in my place. He had no idea what my place was. I had given him every chance. I had been polite. I had complied. I had followed the protocol for a civilian, but I wasn't just a civilian. "Officer Miller," I said, my voice devoid of all emotion, "you've just made the biggest mistake of your career." I lowered my right hand from my head, moving with a slow, deliberate motion toward the inside of my blazer. "Don't you move," he shrieked, fumbling to unholster his pistol. "Don't you dare move." His partner, whose name I couldn't see, took a half-step forward. "Miller, what are you doing? Easy now." But Miller wasn't listening. His face was slick with sweat under the flashing lights, his eyes wide and wild. He was high on the power, on the brink of making a fatal decision. I ignored his panicked screams, my movements fluid and economical. My fingers closed around the familiar cool, heavy leather of my credentials case. I didn't snatch it out. I drew it, like a duelist drawing a sword. I brought the case up in front of me, still kneeling, and flipped it open with my thumb. The polished gold shield caught the strobing red and blue lights, throwing fractured beams of color across Miller's contorted face. It wasn't a county sheriff's star or a city police shield. It was the eagle, its wings spread wide, clutching a bundle of arrows and an olive branch, the unmistakable seal of the United States Department of Justice. For a heartbeat, there was only the sound of the idling cruiser and Miller's ragged breathing. He stared at the shield, then at the photo on my credentials, then back at my face. His brain simply refused to process the information. What is this?" he stammered, his pistol wavering slightly in his hand. Some kind of joke? That's a fake. I let the silence hang in the air for another second before I spoke, my voice cutting through the night like a shard of ice. Special Agent Alana Washington, Department of Justice, badge number 734. Does that look fake to you, Officer Miller? His partner swore under his breath, a low, guttural, "Oh, hell." He immediately took 2 steps back, putting distance between himself and Miller, his hands held up in a placating gesture. He knew. He understood the Richter scale of the earthquake Miller had just triggered. Miller, however, was still trapped in his own small-town kingdom, his authority challenged by the one thing he couldn't bully or dismiss. "I don't believe you," he spat, though the conviction was draining from his voice, replaced by a rising tide of panic. "Then I suggest you get on your radio and run my credentials," I said, my eyes locked on his. "Or better yet, let's call your supervisor. Captain Davies, isn't it? I'm sure he'd be very interested to know why one of his officers has a federal agent on her knees at gunpoint on the side of Route 12. The mention of his captain's name was like a physical blow. Miller flinched. His partner stepped forward again, his voice urgent and low. "Miller, for God's sake, put the damn gun down. Now!" Slowly, like a man moving underwater, Miller lowered his weapon. The immediate threat was gone, but the air was still thick with a tension so palpable you could taste it. I didn't move from my knees. Not yet. I wanted him to see me. I wanted the image of the woman he had just forced to kneel, holding a badge that could end his entire world, burned into his memory. "My phone," I said, my voice leaving no room for argument. "It's in my left blazer pocket. You can get it for me." The partner practically tripped over himself to comply. He carefully reached into my pocket, his fingers trembling slightly as he retrieved the device and handed it to me. Miller just stood there, looking utterly lost, the bully suddenly finding himself in a cage with a lion. I unlocked the phone with my thumb and pulled up my call log. "I was just leaving a multi-agency briefing in the city," I said conversationally, as if we were discussing the weather. "Human trafficking. Nasty business. We've been tracking a ring that has a distribution hub somewhere in this county. We have reason to believe it might involve local law enforcement." I saw Miller's face go pale, a sickly, chalky white under the flashing lights. His partner looked like he was going to be sick right there on the gravel. This wasn't just a bad traffic stop anymore. This was something else entirely. I finally pushed myself to my feet, brushing the sharp bits of gravel from the raw skin on my knees with a deliberate slowness. I stood tall, meeting Miller's horrified gaze. I wasn't Dr. Washington, the scared civilian in a nice car anymore. I was Special Agent Washington, and he was standing in the middle of my crime scene. "You said my taillight was out, officer," I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper. He just stared, mute. I gestured with my head toward the back of my sedan. "Go ahead, check it." His partner, desperate to do something right, scrambled to the back of my car. I watched Miller's face as the man called out, his voice thin and reedy. "The taillight's fine, Miller. Both of them are working." I gave Miller a cold, thin smile. "It seems you pulled me over under a false pretext, officer. And you know what that's called? It's called a targeted stop. Now, I have to wonder why you would target me. Was it just random, garden variety racism? Or was there another reason you didn't want me passing through your territory tonight?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He was a cornered animal, realizing the trap had snapped shut around him. I let him stew in it for a moment longer before delivering the final blow. "You see, the truth is, this stop wasn't a coincidence," I said, taking a step closer, my voice dripping with venomous calm. "I wasn't just passing through. I was on my way to meet an informant, and you, Officer Miller, were the main subject of our conversation." The words hung in the air, heavier than the humid night. Miller's face, already pale, turned the color of ash. His partner froze, his hand halfway to his radio, his eyes wide with a dawning, sickening realization. He was no longer just a witness to a bad stop. He was collateral damage in a federal investigation. My informant, I continued, never taking my eyes off Miller, was a young girl, 17. One of the ones your ring trafficked. She finally got the courage to talk, to give us a name, your name. She said you were the one who picked the girls up, the one who used your uniform to make them feel safe before you handed them over. She described your car, your route. She was supposed to meet me at a diner 2 miles from here. She was scared. She said you had a reputation, that you liked to pull people over on this very road. I let that sink in. I was laying out the pieces for him, showing him the board and explaining precisely how he had checkmated himself. The illegal stop, the fabricated reason, the unnecessary aggression. It wasn't just him being a racist thug. It was panic. He saw a black woman in a nondescript car on his road, late at night, and his guilty conscience had filled in the rest. He assumed I was connected, that I was a threat that needed to be neutralized, intimidated, and scared away. So when you saw me, you didn't just see a target for your bigotry, I pressed on, my voice like a surgeon's scalpel. You saw a threat to your entire operation. You had to stop me. You had to put me in my place. You had to make sure I knew who was in charge out here. I gestured around us at the dark, empty road. Out here in your little kingdom. Miller finally found his voice, a strangled, pathetic whisper. I don't know what you're talking about. This is a mistake. I'm a good cop. Are you? I shot back, my tone sharp as a whip crack. A good cop doesn't force an unarmed woman to her knees at gunpoint because of a phantom taillight. A good cop doesn't get his name dropped by a terrified victim of human trafficking. I held up my phone. This entire stop, from the moment your lights went on, has been recorded. Audio and video. My superiors received a live feed the second I was pulled over. It's standard protocol for undercover agents in potentially hostile territory. They heard everything. The voodoo comment, the false pretense for the stop, the order to get on my knees. His partner looked like he was about to faint. He unclipped his radio from his shoulder. Dispatch, I need a supervisor at Route 12, mile marker 7, immediately. Good idea, I said, giving him a curt nod. You might just save your own career tonight. I turned my full attention back to Miller, who was visibly trembling now. The tough guy persona stripped away to reveal the coward underneath. You thought I was just some woman you could scare, some thug you could humiliate. You couldn't imagine that I could be the one holding all the cards. That's your problem, Miller. Your prejudice makes you stupid. It makes you predictable. Headlights appeared in the distance, growing brighter as 2, then 3. Patrol cars came speeding down the road, sirens screaming. They screeched to a halt behind Miller's cruiser, boxing us in. A portly man with captain's bars on his collar, Captain Davies, scrambled out of the first car, his face a mixture of confusion and fury. "What in God's name is going on here, Miller?" he bellowed. Before Miller could stammer out a response, I stepped forward, holding up my credentials. "Special Agent Washington, Department of Justice," I announced, my voice carrying clearly in the night. "Captain Davies, I am placing your officer, John Miller, under arrest on suspicion of involvement in a federal human trafficking ring, as well as multiple civil rights violations." Davies's jaw dropped. He looked from my badge to the pathetic, crumbling wreck that was Officer Miller, and the pieces clicked into place with an audible clang. The color drained from his face as he understood the magnitude of the disaster that had just unfolded on his watch. As 2 of Davies's stunned-looking officers cautiously approached Miller, I walked back to my car. My knees throbbed, and a deep, bone-weary exhaustion was starting to set in. But beneath it, there was a cold, hard ember of satisfaction. I leaned against my car, watching them cuff him. I saw the moment his partner, the one who told him to stand down, refused to meet his eyes. Miller was alone, stripped of his power, his uniform now nothing more than a costume for a monster. He looked over at me one last time as they pushed him into the back of a squad car, his face a mask of disbelief and pure, unadulterated hatred. He still didn't understand. He saw the badge, but he couldn't see past the skin. He couldn't comprehend a world where a woman who looked like me could hold his life in her hands. I took a deep breath, the night air feeling cleaner somehow. The fight wasn't over. There was a whole network to bring down, and justice for that terrified 17-year-old girl to secure. But tonight, on this dark stretch of road, one little piece of that justice had been served. He had forced me to my knees, wanting to make me feel small. But as the patrol car pulled away, carrying him toward the end of his career and the start of a long prison sentence, I had never felt taller.